I became a millionaire at 19 from e-commerce. We started scaling and until my business partner screwed me over. He ended up stealing from the company, stealing from me. But because I was naive to business, this was my first big multi-million pound business, I was stupid. You are accountable for everything that happens to you in life. And I fully believed that the whole situation happened because of my failings. And because of that, it was a huge lesson to me not to do those things again in the future. And I'm so grateful that now I get into business with people, everything's checked, everything's in a contract. Every single person I do business with has certain traits that I look for. Nothing hurts more than losing a shitload of money. It teaches you the best lessons. They're expensive lessons, but what lessons normally aren't expensive? The good ones.
Did you see? Здравейте, приятели! Добре дошли в поредния епизод на Да убиеш Дракона подкаст. В днешния епизод гост ми е предприемачът Elliot Wise, с който си говорим за бизнес. Той разказва за това как е стартирал бизнесите си, как се е срещнал с жена си и защо обича България. Мисля, че той дава доста практически съвети, така че епизод ще ви бъде много интересен и полезен. Една важна вметка, епизодът е на английски, защото Елиот не говори български. Преди да започнем, един технически въпрос. Всеки от вас, който ми остави коментар под това видео, участва за награди от над 400 лева, като победителите ще бъдат излъчени в описанието на следващия клип. Също така, оставяйки коментар, помагате и на канала да достига до повече хора, за което ви благодаря. Сега към самия епизод. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for being a guest at the podcast.
You're very welcome, Balasar. Pleasure.
Can you tell the audience a bit more about yourself? How did you start in business?
How did I start in business?
Yeah.
The ripe old age of 13.
13?
13.
This is below the legal age, right?
Below the legal age. I'm 33 now, so 20 years ago, right? Well, it's only below the legal age in Bulgaria. I've just found out the other day it was 14.
Yeah.
Age of consent here. Well, that's a conversation for another topic, for another day. But I was lucky enough to be born just when the evolution of the internet was coming out, websites started to be built by the time I was in my secondary school period.
Yes.
And I suddenly realized this is going to be a big thing. Like people were trying to figure out what the internet was and how it was going to be used and what websites were and how it was going to be used. I remember chatting to my parents. They were like, this is just going to be a fad. It's going to be nothing, right? And I was like, no. I think businesses are going to need websites. They're going to need to show their stuff. They're going to need to buy things off of it. And I thought, well, I'm never going to do a paper round. I was never going to be that guy that did the labor jobs. So I thought, you know what? I was a geek. I'll learn to code. And sure enough, back then it was Microsoft Front Page, which was an old software you could build websites on. And I learned C++, JavaScript.
Dreamweaver.
Dreamweaver came after. I got to Dreamweaver after. I was better. Adobe was better than Microsoft, right? You remember those days?
I remember the Dreamweaver only.
Yeah, so I basically just started learning. I built myself a Warhammer website. So if people know what that is, it's a geeky game, right?
Okay.
That you paint models and play. And I started hunting high and low for my first web design client, which ended up being my second cousin who had a manufacturing lighting company. And he's like, yeah, I'll buy a website off you for £300. I was like, to me, that was all the money in the world. So then I got to about coding this thing. It took me 6 months. It was a huge website, super slow, super clunky. But that was it. I was hooked. Built my first website and then I went and got an accountant. I said I'm going to do it properly. I think they kind of laughed at me at the time, but I did it right from day one. And that was it. I was absolutely hooked on business at that point. And fast forward a few years, I then started hiring kids in my class to do graphic design, had other guys doing flash animations.
So you were in freelancing, is that correct?
Yeah, it's freelancing at that age. Then, age of 16, eCommerce.
Oh.
Which I know you love.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
Absolutely.
E-commerce is the best. I saw that as an amazing vehicle. I got approached by a chap named Mark who was a sales representative in the UK for lighting. So bulbs, commercial lighting, shop lighting. And he said to me, Elliot, I can get the best prices in the world. And it's from big brands like Philips and all, I don't know if you know the brands, you have those brands here. But I sell to the biggest companies and I can get them, people that pay millions of years for these products. I can get you the same price. We'll partner up. You could be the name of the company because I can't be seen to be selling it. And we'll start taking over the internet. And then very quickly, I built a website out and realized, turned it on, no sales. I was like, how do I make sales? Marketing. Okay, then I bought a book, Google AdWords for Dummies. This is when I was 17. I read the thing back to front, made loads of notes, and I was one of the first people really to start doing AdWords. Super, super cheap.
That was what year?
So I was 17. Do the math. 5 years, maybe
2008.
Around that time, yes.
Yeah.
This is pre-social media and all that kind of stuff. So it was mainly, there was no Meta advertising or Facebook advertising. This was...
It was only Google.
It was only Google back then, which was great. That was cheap clicks. Like
the only show in town.
The only show in town, and it was cheap. It was cheap, real cheap. So yeah, cut long story short, I then decided I was buying from manufacturers in the UK to sell. It was a lighting company as well. And then I flew out to China. I was like, I'm sick of all these people in the UK selling me overpriced products. I'm going out to China on my own.
You went to China, not to third party like Alibaba or something?
Nope.
Like that?
Back then, the Alibaba wasn't around, man. It wasn't around. So I was like, I'm flying out to China. I booked a ticket. I told my business partner I'm going. I'm going to go and visit the factories out there. I got on a flight. I'm off. I had nowhere to stay. No one that spoke any English there. I just wanted to figure it out. So I got there, realized no one would give me a short-term accommodation. There was no Airbnb back then either.
Yeah.
No one would give... So then I had to book myself into a hotel. I realized that no one there spoke any English. So then I started looking for a translator. I then started trying to find factories around there.
But you were already in China, right?
Yeah, I was in China. I didn't even plan it. I was just like, I'm going to find out.
That's wild.
That's why it was wild. Yeah. But I'd never really done anything like that in my life. I was just out. I was gone. And... I found a translator who ended up being in business as well. He's an English guy called Spike. I then managed to find an apartment where they gave me a 6-month lease if I paid it all up front. And then we just started visiting factories.
Okay. Visiting factories in China. As a 17, 18, something?
No, I think at that point I was about 21.
21,
so yeah,
okay.
This is a few years later. So we were doing really well. I became a millionaire at 19 from eCommerce, doing the lighting. But that
from
was
the light bulbs that you bought from brands.
And I was obviously still selling websites as well.
Okay.
And then that was good enough for me to then say, well, look, if I can get out to China, I can buy this at the prices my suppliers are selling it to me for. I'm going to do a hell of a lot better. So off I went. Negotiated different factories against one another. Got my first order. I think I put a £250,000 order in China while I was there. That obviously landed before I even got back.
Really?
And the rest was history, really, on that front. We started scaling and... until my business partner screwed me over. So he ended up stealing from the company, stealing from me, and then ended up running.
He had access to the accounts?
I was letting him do the accounts. He's older than me, and I was doing the front end. I trusted too much. It was a massive lesson for me. One of the best lessons I've ever had.
Why did you need a partner for that business?
Because he was bringing the supply of the products. Once I got to the point of actually being able to go and source the products myself, I could have done it on my own, but I'm a man of integrity and honor. If I get into business with someone, and that person brings value to me above and beyond what I can do, then it's a great synergy. I think business partners are brilliant.
Yeah.
I think business partners are brilliant, providing two things. One, they bring value to the table above and beyond what you do. So they don't have the same skills. It's pointless being in business with someone that has the same skills.
Absolutely.
Second to that, never, ever, ever get into business with someone that needs money. Ever. Number one cardinal rule. If you get into business with someone that's desperate for money, you will end up out of business, spending on them to make sure that they can survive, and ultimately sucking all of the life out of the business, which you need money to grow the thing. Money's the fuel. And when you're with someone that only cares about the money, you don't invest in the business itself. So for me, partner now, wealthy people that have different skill sets to you that can come to the business. And I think that's a fantastic way to scale a business. But if you don't have that, do it yourself.
So he didn't bring value to the table, but you still kept him
He
in
did
in
up
the
until a
business.
point, but obviously we started at that point together, and he was running the supply, he was running the factory, because we had quite a big dispatch team, we had the warehousing, he was running all of that. So he was bringing value to the business. I didn't need to stay into business with him, but obviously we got into business together, and of course I'm going to stay in business.
Okay.
He just got into a really messy position in his private life where he needed money, and then started borrowing from the company. I don't think he ever meant to screw me over, but got so bad that he started running it into the ground. And I wasn't paying attention enough because I trusted too much.
Did you know that he was borrowing money
Nope.
from the company?
Nope, I had no idea because I trusted him completely to handle that stuff. That I didn't do my due
You
diligence.
didn't see
I
the
check.
transactions, for example?
He was older than me, and I wasn't checking. I got complacent.
Okay.
So I blame myself. If I'd been checking, it never would have happened. But because I was naive to business, this was my first big multi-million-pound business, I was stupid. You are accountable for everything that happens to you in life. And I fully believe that the whole situation happened because of my failings. And because of that, it was a huge lesson to me. not to do those things again in the future. And I'm so grateful that now I get into business with people, everything's checked, everything's in a contract. Every single person that I do business with has certain traits that I look for. And it's helped me no end. Nothing hurts more than losing a shitload of money. It teaches you the best lessons. Yeah. They're expensive lessons, but what lessons normally aren't expensive? The good ones.
The good ones are always expensive.
The good ones are always expensive. So look at the bright side. And look, I was young enough to bounce back. I didn't allow it to completely destroy me. Yeah, I went.
Did you sue?
I didn't sue him, no. So I actually just ended up, I didn't have a lawyer back then. I have solicitors now that work for me, lawyers that work for me on retainer. And I didn't go down that route. I was just wanted to get out. I wanted to be gone. I wanted to start afresh, and I didn't want to drag on the past. Now I would go for people pretty heavily, but I have a team that does it for me, so I don't have to worry.
Okay. So you continue with the light bulbs from China?
No, so when that happened, I then started up a marketing agency.
A marketing agency?
Yeah, so...
It was trending at the time.
I had a house, but I rented out all the rooms because I pretty much nearly bankrupted me. I didn't want to sell the house, so I just rented out every single room to cover the bills. I moved back in with my mum, and I spent 6 months building up a marketing agency with the knowledge that I'd learned from eCommerce. eCommerce, without a doubt, if you were starting out in business and you can do eCommerce to start with, is the absolute best to learn all the foundations of business. I learned logistics, I learned people, I learned pay-per-click advertising, I learned how to optimize on digital platforms. I learned everything that I could then take to a marketing agency and scale that up using the knowledge that I built from eCommerce. So I'm always loyal and grateful for eCommerce. It's amazing. So I built a marketing agency because I wanted to be more diversified. I wanted to have different sources of income, which for me, I was actually partnering up with multiple different businesses, some e-commerce businesses, some brick and mortar businesses, some trade businesses, and I was doing their marketing for them and just winning them as clients. Built up a website, started doing more marketing and pushing that. And within 6 months, I was already earning more than I was earning from the e-commerce, and I was more diversified. So one big lesson that I've learned for me is when you actually learn the skills of entrepreneurship, you'll never end up being poor. Once you've got a skill, truly that can earn you money, if you know how to sell, if you know how to especially sell online, you'll always be able to, providing you understand human psychology, get onto any platform at the time and actually build an income. But when you first make money, I don't know if you're the same as me, when you first make money, there's always this question in the back of your mind. If I were to lose it all, could I make it back? Was I lucky? Was it something that I fluked? Did I get in at the right time? And I think actually having lost it all and building it back fills you full of confidence. It floods you with the knowledge that you can actually bounce back. And then you don't act so defensively in business. You take bigger risks because you know that, okay, if I actually get knocked down, I can just build it back. Then all of a sudden you're free to be an entrepreneur.
But are you really free? Because it isn't as glorious when you're actually on your back.
No, it sucks when you're on your back.
It sucks.
It sucks when you're on your back. But it's also very freeing to get back off of your back and move forward again.
It is.
It's like being punched and realizing you're not made of glass. You can then go into the battle not scared of dying. So then you're an animal. And that's a really awesome place to be. And yeah, I would love for me not to have had to lose everything to realize that. But it was one of the best things that could have happened to me early on in my career as well.
Yeah. As you said, the best lessons are often expensive.
Yeah.
In terms of money, sometimes in terms of relationships even.
And I think the earlier you can experience them, the better you'll be in the future. Some people don't get those lessons till way later on, and it's a lot harder to bounce back. I mean, I was in a fortunate position back then. I didn't have kids. I didn't have a wife. The only person that I really needed to worry about was me. So it's very easy for me to bounce back at that point.
Absolutely.
I think now I play the game differently. You know, I have 2 boys, I have a wife. They rely on me. I have big teams. I can't afford to just bankrupt businesses and move back in with my mum.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen anymore.
But you have a bigger cushion right now.
I have a bigger cushion, and I'm also, you know, more wise from the batterings that I took getting to that point.
It's in your name, so Elliot.
Yeah, Elliot Wise. By the way, my name is Wise, right? So many people. I had a guy yesterday ask me in a cigar lounge that I was in. He's like, "Is your name really Wise?" He's like, "I've seen you on social media." I was like, "Yeah, it's Wise." He's like, "You're chatting rubbish." I had to show him my ID. He was like, "No way." I was just lucky.
Lucky you, man.
Yeah.
Правим кратко прекъсване от подкаста и ще продължим след секунди. Нека ви кажа няколко думи за това, защо е важно да се абонирате за канала, ако харесвате видеята. Както всички много добре знаем, YouTube много често промотира забавно съдържание за сметка на образователното. Каквото е съдържанието в този канал. Причината за това е, че забавните клипове правят много повече гледания от тези, които са с образователна тематика. Това е причината YouTube много често да скрива от вас подобно съдържание. Единственият начин да върнете силата да избирате в свои ръце е да се абонирате за канала, но да го направите с камбанка. Защо с камбанка? Защото в правилата на YouTube ясно пише, че платформата сама решава какво видео да представи пред потребителите, независимо от това дали те са абонирани за конкретен канал или не. Така че чистият абонамент реално има много малко значение в очите на YouTube. Единственият абонамент, който има реално значение, който гарантира, че съдържанието ще достигне до вас, е абонаментът с камбанка. Какво ви обещавам в замяна на вашия абонамент? Обещавам ви, че ще каня страхотни гости, до част от които достъпът никак не е лесен. С част от хората трябва да се оговаряш с месеци, за да може да запишат до студиото. При други пък трябва да търсиш контакт с тях през много различни хора и като цяло е процес, през който знам, че голяма част от подкастерите в България няма да минат, но за мен си заслужават тези хора да бъдат чути и смятам, че имат какво да кажат, така че да обогатят живота ви или да ви образоват по теми, които имат значение. Какво направите сега? Задължително се абонирайте с камбанка, както ви казах. Ако вече сте абонирани за канала, тогава цъкнете и камбанката, за да може да си гарантирате, че ще получавате всички нови видеа. Благодаря ви, обратно към подкаста. What did you do after the marketing agency? Did you sell it?
No. So the marketing agency stayed the whole time. I actually ended up meeting who now is my wife, and we moved. She was finishing her medical degree, so I actually moved in with her. So I moved up north to a place called Stoke-on-Trent, which isn't the nicest place in the UK.
It's
but I
in
love
the UK,
it.
not Scotland.
Yeah, it's called Stoke-on-Trent in the UK. The people there are amazing, but the area is not great. And while I was there, I decided to start putting my wealth into real estate. So I started buying student lets, HMOs. Basically, cut a long story short, my wife is very entrepreneurial as well.
Okay.
So when she moved into a medical degree, she'd been running what's known as a shop business in the UK, where she had girls that would go around to clubs and they'd sell shots. I don't know if they have that here, but basically
they sell it.
They carry it on trays, and basically she would make a profit on the bottle. And she managed to organize deals with all of the clubs to have these girls go in and do it, and she would make a lot of money. So she did that before she went to university. Now, with the money she earned, she bought a house and then rented out all the rooms to her student mates.
She bought a house selling shots.
Right? And then with that money, she bought a student house that she was going to live in, so she didn't have to pay rent, and then rented out all the rooms to her medical colleagues or medical students that she was with. So then he was paying for her rent and allowing her to live for free. Now, when we got together, I said, look, I can live anywhere in the world and work anywhere in the world because I'm a digital marketer, right? So I was like, I'll come up and see you. I'll spend time with you because it's just a few hours from where I lived. So I rented out my house again. I moved up and I was like, there is no way I'm living with students again because I did an economics degree. I skipped that part. I built my web design business and my eCommerce business while I was at university as well. So I did the academic side of things as well. So I did an economics degree. I was like, no way. I was there for a couple of months. I was like, no way I'm living with students again. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to start buying. Had I seen how successful she had been in renting hers out, I'm going to start buying student properties all around this area. And then I came up with a formula that I knew that I needed to rent. If I could buy the house at a certain price, that meant that each room was under a certain value. If I divided by the house price by the number of rooms, I was going to be in profit by X amount. So then I started buying up.
If you take a loan?
Yes. So I was getting what's close as a buy-to-let interest-only mortgage.
Okay.
So you put 20% down deposit. You only pay the interest off, and then makes the loan repayments much lower. And then I was just trying to optimize for the most amount of rental income I could from each room. So when you look at a house of multiple occupancy is what HMO stands for, which basically means you own a house, and then each room is effectively its own product. So when someone rents it out, you'll get X amount of rent per tenant in each room.
Yeah.
So I was trying to optimize the maximum for that and pay the least amount for the mortgage. So each house I was earning over £1,000 a month profit per house on a 4 to 5 bedroom. So I started acquiring those. And my goal was to get enough rental income so that it would cover all of my living expenses. That was my goal. So that basically I was fully secure. So even if I just wanted to go live on a beach in Thailand, the house rent would cover my life. That also meant that I had security in my other businesses, because then I knew that if I lost everything or I needed to invest loads into the business, my lifestyle was covered. I didn't need to take anything out of the business. And then when I hit that amount, I felt very secure. That was a big goal of mine.
You did hit that.
I hit that, yeah, quite quickly. So I think when I got to about 10 houses, I was covering everything in my life and making savings outside of my day-to-day business.
Yeah. Okay. So that gave you the security that you could invest in the business if the business needed it and not take money.
And not only that, it just meant that I could just focus fully on building the business without having the ties of needing money. Like I said, even if I need money in a business, it's not good. Because quite often, if you want to scale a business fast, it needs investment, it needs to be pushed, it needs to be grown. Money is only a tool. It's a lifeline for a business. That's what entrepreneurs understand that normal people don't. That it is purely a mechanism to maneuver, to invest, to support, to grow more of it. It's a construct that doesn't exist. It's nothing. It doesn't mean anything. It's an energy. It's a flow. So you just need to make sure you have enough of it to be able to grow the thing you're trying to build. And that's the thing ultimately that builds wealth and security, not the money itself. The money is just flow. It's just energy.
Yeah. What did you do after that?
What did I do after that? So I actually set up another e-commerce store. So I actually started doing
Actually, just before that, how did you meet your wife?
How did I meet my wife?
Yeah.
Well.
Any advice on that department?
Oh, wow. We're going to go down a complete rabbit hole. Okay, so I had
It's relevant to me, so.
Okay. Okay, we're really warming up now. Okay, these are the real questions are getting asked. So for me, I skipped a lot of my life, right? So I've done a very short synapse of what happened.
Okay.
But obviously had a lot of girlfriends. I trialed and errored a lot of different people. And I figured out that every single time I just approached women like passion and love without too much thought, something went wrong.
Just passion and love?
So if you're just going off of gut instinct. So I was looking at women and trying to find women just off of initial looks and also just my initial thought process. There wasn't really any thought process or methodology I was applying to finding a woman. Okay. It was more just if I find one, I'll find one. Whatever I bump into is great.
Yeah, if you like it, you like it.
Yeah,
you know,
that kind of thing, right? So it was like, finding a woman in my mind shouldn't have been something that was scientific or planned. Okay. That's the way I was approaching it. Every single time I was with someone that I really liked, something ended up messing up. So I thought, you know what, this isn't working. I have massive goals and visions with my business. I'm extremely ambitious, extremely entrepreneurial, massively competitive. And I knew that the partner that I pick would have the biggest influence on my ability to scale that. So for me to find a woman that could stand by my side and actually help me build this empire together was extremely important. And I knew, having hired COOs, people in my businesses that are instrumental in building it, it applies a lot of tick boxes. So what I did is actually made a massive list of characters, traits, and attributes that I was looking for in a woman. It was pretty comprehensive.
Did you write it down?
I wrote it down.
Yeah, okay.
Right? Such as one of the first things on there, actually the first thing was, are they family orientated? What's their relationship like with their mum and their dad? Okay. Do they have any brothers and sisters? How often do they see them? It started off with family, because for me, that's the most important thing in a business. Then it was what their entrepreneurial characteristics. What do they think about what do they think about, being with someone that's like me? So there was a lot of things I wrote down. Are they loyal? Are they trustworthy? How many relationships have they been in before? What's their everything.
You filled an entire notebook.
I filled a notebook out. And do you know what I realized? I was really struggling to find that. So I waited. And someone suggested maybe that I download Tinder, which is a dating app. Do you know what Tinder is? Do you have that here?
Yeah.
Yeah?
It's where the dreams of finding a partner go today.
Well, it wasn't for me. So I decided to download it. And what I noticed about it, which I liked back in the day, I don't know if this still applies now, but you get to see someone's CV pretty quickly. So I was able to very quickly filter people based on my checklist on initial stance or viewpoints.
But how did you know? It's only photos in most of the cases.
So yes, it was quite a quick filter. So with low friction, I was able to quite quickly figure out who was doing what. So for me, she's an Iranian woman, which I know have pretty good core values. Obviously, I liked her photo. She was training to be a doctor, which hit a few tick boxes. She put something on there about her family. And she was with a friend in a photo, so I knew she was a sociable person. And the way she'd taken the photos wasn't a complete narcissist. So, just from her perspective, I remember her profile because I remember it ticking a lot of initial boxes that I was looking for. that would be a prerequisite then for me to reach out. Obviously, then as conversation ensues and you go on dates, etc., I would dig deeper on those things. But I was able to quickly filter out hundreds, if not thousands of people based on some initial criteria.
Okay.
So it was a very quick filtering mechanism for me. And it was the first girl I'd ever dated off of Tinder. And it was the only woman I've ever married. And hopefully only
You
woman
met
I've
her
ever
on Tinder?
met her on Tinder.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, man.
There's hope yet.
It gives me hope, but
It was my intolerance to not find. Basically, I was not going to allow myself to tolerate anything less than exceptional, and I knew that the next woman that I was going to be with would be someone that would have to absolutely blow me away when I first saw them. And if I didn't get that from them, I wouldn't even bother entertaining it anymore. That's very difficult to find, but I also knew that I would have to become the man deserving of that. Okay, a lot of men blame the lack of women out there for their poor success with women or for them not being out there. You have to remember that in life, you get what you deserve. That applies to money, that applies to success, that applies to women. If you are someone highly skilled, highly talented, you will attract a lot of money. If you are someone that is a great leader, you will attract good people into your business. If you are a man deserving, you're a gentleman, you have integrity, honor, respect, you're a high caliber person, which I class as a gentleman, you will attract a lady. But unless you're resonating on those frequencies, you won't see them. They won't find you and they won't want to go anywhere near you. So you have to become the person that's deserving of it. And then that will then open up to those kind of women. As I've seen it every single time with men that elevate, they then suddenly elevate the woman that they're attracting. And also in life, as you become a better man, you'll attract a better life. I'm a big believer in that. And I've seen it over and over.
You're talking about the law of attraction?
Yes. I talk about frequency.
I mean, the metaphysical concept of the law of attraction.
But I think just from experience, what I've seen is, you don't chase money. You chase a better you, a more skilled you, which will then enable you to earn more money. The same way you don't chase women, you chase a better version of you that a woman that you would want to attract would find attractive.
But you have to make the first step.
Of
After
course.
all, we're men.
Of course.
So you have to, in a way, chase when you make the first step.
I have found that you're much more likely to magnetize a woman and because of social media now and the amount of stuff we put out. Yes, obviously if you're a hermit and you sit in your room all day, you're not going to find anyone. But providing you're putting yourself out there, you're working hard, you're growing yourself, you're building an empire, they will see you. They will see you. Yes, you might have to instigate to start with, but all of a sudden you'll become aware of them.
How much time did it take you from meeting her for the first time to marrying her?
Ooh, that was
a few years?
That was a difficult one, yes. It was a couple of years. The reason being was she was very much in respect, and still is, of her family and her dad. So she's Iranian, and in her culture, I know Iranians at the moment aren't the most popular people in the world, but they are wonderful people, and I've had nothing but amazing experiences with Iran and Iranians. I think the government are the issue there. However, what I loved about her and her culture was you don't meet her dad until you're ready to marry her, right? So
you don't meet her. Meet him.
We were dating, but her dad didn't know or claimed he didn't know anything about us dating. And she told me, she said, look, just to let you know, I respect my dad more than anyone in the world. If you want to marry me, I will introduce you to my dad and you have to ask for his permission beforehand. I said, I love that, it's traditional. But if you have any hesitation or thoughts that it might not work, you absolutely must not meet my dad and must not tell me. So it's completely in your court when you want to do this. But just know that when I tell my dad, I've never introduced him to another man in my entire life, which I also respected. When I introduce you to him, we're serious. And I need you to respect that. And I said, absolutely. So I obviously took that, because I respected her so much, to heart. And I made sure that this would really work, because I know us entrepreneurs, we have very intense lives. We're very selfish people. We don't live a normal life. I needed to make sure that we were going to be compatible before I made that step. So it was about 2 years before I said, look, I'm ready to meet your dad. I said, okay.
Was he in Iran?
No, he was in England.
He was in England.
Yeah, so before I met him as well, I learned some Farsi. I now speak fluent Farsi because I have to in her family. But I tried to learn some Farsi so that when I met him, it would show a high level of respect from me. It was a very weird moment, right? You go to this guy's house. He's obviously a bit nervous as well. He would never show it. But it's not something he's ever done. It's certainly not something I've ever done. And you sit in a room and have to ask a man that's never met you for his daughters, who's the most important person thing in the world to him, the person he's protected all his life, to ask for his hand or her hand in marriage and to allow him to respect you enough to look after her and be someone that he can trust to look after his daughter, his pride and joy, his princess.
You asked him directly?
Of course. I was in his house. His main question was, can you support my daughter? That's all I want to know.
Правим кратко прекъсване от епизода, за да ти разкажа за едно безплатно обучение, което провеждам. В него ти показвам как да тестваш и валидираш бизнес идеята си онлайн, лесно, бързо и с минимален бюджет. Ако пък нямаш бизнес идея, ще ти покажа как да откриеш такава, като изхождаш на първо място от интересите на клиента. Методологията, която преподаваме, е изключително лесна и е представена в обучението стъпка по стъпка, така че всеки да може да я следва. Тя е доказана от стотици наши ученици, студенти, които са преминали през наши обучения, както и над 10 000 души, които са си купили книгата Мисия онлайн бизнес. Хора от 16 до 70 години прилагат тази методология успешно, за да намерят или валидират бизнес идеята си онлайн. След обучението ще си въоръжен със знания точно какво да направиш, за да откриеш бизнес идеята си или да я тестваш в онлайн среда с минимален бюджет, бързо и лесно. Обучението се провежда наживо в Zoom и е напълно безплатно. В края му ще можеш да ми задаваш въпроси. Записвайки се на линка в описанието към този клип или на velizar.eu, влизаш в листата на чакащите и ще получиш имейл, когато обявим дата за следващото такова обучение. Така че запиши се още сега, за да си гарантираш място. Сега обратно към епизода.
You know, Middle Eastern cultures specifically do like doctors, engineers, lawyers. I was an entrepreneur. Luckily for me, he was too, so he appreciated that. His only question was, can I rely on you to look after my daughter? And I said, Rez, I'll promise you one thing. I would rather die than allow my family, allow your daughter, our future family, to ever struggle or suffer. I will beg, borrow, steal, murder if I had to make sure that they never go without, because that's the kind of person I am. And I could bet on my life right now that you will see that very quickly in me. And I promise you that is something you never have to worry about. And he said, okay.
He believed you.
He believed me. Because trust me, when I said it to him with the conviction that I did, I believe that. I never would. You know, as I feel it was my responsibility as a father now, as a husband, you never let your family go without, no matter what. I'd rather die before that happened.
That was how many years ago?
That was 7 years ago.
7 years ago. Okay, it's an interesting story.
Yeah, I think it's lost today. Like the respect that you have for the parents of the person you're going to marry, I think is super important. It also shows to your wife or future wife the level of respect you have for her and her family, which sets things off on a good foot.
Absolutely. If you want to marry someone, you know, certainly you have to be familiar with the relationship they have with her father, mother, and other siblings. Absolutely. It shows you a lot.
I think the key thing with any woman that you're going to get into a relationship with is ultimately the relationship they've had with their family. It's always been a big one for me.
She'll turn into her mother at some point.
She'll turn to her mother, and also the level of respect she has for her father will greatly predicate itself into and show itself with typically how she will treat and handle you. And also when you have children, she will also have an expectation normally of your role as a father being probably quite similar to how she had her father. And if it's a really good experience, she'll also pressure you and also push you into a good light, into being a good father. Because trust me, when you've had kids, there's no rule book for that. The main thing you're going off of is how you were parented. And if you had not had a good role model as parents, it's then very difficult quite often. I'm not saying there's bad parents that have had bad parents, not at all. I've seen great parents that have had no parents and really abusive childhoods. But what I'm saying is it definitely helps. If you are a man that's able to attract a lot of women, why wouldn't you just pick one that's likely going to give you the best outcome? So for me, those were obvious choices to go for, as people that had or women that had really good family values, great relationships with their parents, great relationships with their siblings. It was an easy choice for me.
Great, man. Great story. Let me get you back to the e-commerce.
Yeah, let's go back to e-commerce. Making money.
We'll talk about manhood in another episode.
Yeah, I think we can go deep on that.
Yeah, we can definitely go deep. So you did start an agency. You met your future wife. Mm-hmm. So what did you do after that? So you said you started a few e-commerce brands?
So yeah, started a few e-commerce brands. So I got back into the lighting game again, because once you've learned how to sell something, you understand the market, it's very easy to spin up again.
It's like a drug.
It's like a drug, man. E-commerce is absolutely incredible. Like, you have the ability, depending on what model you do, to ultimately get to a point where you have almost an infinitely scalable income or revenue, because depending on what you're selling or what you're supplying, you struggle to get to a point. I mean, look at Jeff Bezos. They don't really struggle with the amount of volume they're selling, right? You can get to a point where it's almost infinitely scalable, and you can optimize it. You can create systems in place so that the whole thing pretty much runs on autopilot, and all you've got to do is think about how to keep this thing growing, which is amazing. So it's a drug. It's awesome.
It is.
And then my wife was finishing up a medical degree, and it was, okay, do we want to start a family? Yes, we do. But we're up in Stoke-on-Trent in the middle of nowhere with no family around us. Do we really want to go into this with her starting out as a doctor, me having the very, very intense work schedule that I had? I mean, I'm training a lot. I'm working all the time. Loving it, by the way. And we thought, well, okay, we're definitely going to need some help. So we either hire nannies or we move back down south where we're from and have a bit more family around. So that's what we did. And on doing that, we very quickly realized that the NHS, as good as it is for certain things, she wanted to also continue to run her own business because she's very entrepreneurial. So my wife has an insatiable appetite for having her own business and her own income, which she's always done. And
Do you have a problem with that?
No. So for me, this is the way I approached it. I know we're going back onto that side of things again, but it's really important. It's how I made my business decisions. So I realized very quickly, my wife was very happy for me to be the breadwinner, to be the person that provided, which I like doing. We had this discussion and we aligned our expectations prior to getting married about what we wanted from the relationship. And for me, I wanted to be the main provider. And we talked about having kids, and she wanted to be more of the maternal, not stay at home, but she wanted to still at work, but also, have kids and have some more traditional roles. That's what we agreed upon.
Okay.
And what I noticed actually wasn't from her, is that when she had her own income, she felt more stable and secure. And I believed, and this was my interpretation on how our relationship would best work, because every relationship is different. I knew that if she had her own business that she could be proud of, that gave her something to grow and build, that also gave her some financial independence and security, it would mean that she had a safer and more secure feeling in herself and her foundation, right? And where she was in our relationship, which then also meant she wasn't always fully reliant on me and always needing to be beholden to my income and always asking for income. Even though she knows that she has her own safety net.
Yes.
And what that did for our relationship was enable her to be completely free with me and never feel like she needed me. She was there because she wanted to be. And I never want to feel like I'm in a position where I'm trying to control her through finances or fear, because then for me, that's not a good relationship, especially with the way we both are. And what it's given her is her own independence, her own passion, something to look at outside of me. Because I'll tell you what, I've been in relationships before. When you are a woman's world and there is nothing outside of it, it can get really intense, really intense. You then have to constantly satisfy someone that, of course, if they've got nothing else going on in their life apart from you, you are their main focus, you're their best friend, you're their everything. And then that becomes pressure on you to give all of your time and energy to that person quite often, which then becomes extremely draining.
Yeah.
Very difficult when you are with someone that literally has nothing going on outside of you.
I can attest to that.
Really difficult. Although it sounds great to be someone's world, trust me, if they don't have friends, if they don't have their own business, they don't have their own purpose, it is super intense.
They become obsessive.
Controlling.
Yeah.
They become fixated on having all of your attention, then they start to despise your work because that's the thing that's taking the attention away from them. Then all of a sudden you go in this rabbit hole of trying to balance the two, feeling guilty for then going to work, feeling guilty for providing, and then you've then got someone that is ultimately trying to drag your empire down that you're trying to build for them and yourself. Whereas if you give a lady that you're with, if she wants it, some of that independence and her own security, for us, it's been the best thing we could have done, because then we're free in our relationship and she knows that God forbid anything happens to me, she can support the boys and the family and everything else with her income too, which is fantastic. And it's actually been nothing but good for us. Very, very controversial and very different opinion to what most men would say, but it's worked brilliantly for me.
Yeah.
So, cut long story short, we set up an aesthetics clinic together. So I said, look, I'm going to help you build aesthetics, Botox lip fillers. Okay. Which was, it's been booming at the time. She's absolutely killing it now. But I said, look, this is what I'm going to do. I don't want to micromanage your business. This is your thing. You don't need to earn the money. I can provide the money. So just look at this like your passion, the thing that you want to build. What I'll do is I'll help you get it off the ground. I'll do the marketing for you. I'll get the clients through the door. And then I said, then it's on you.
Did you finance it?
I financed it. Didn't require a huge amount. We built an office. Actually, because I'd rather build it. We built the clinic. We built everything for her. I then said, look, I'm going to run all the marketing for you. I'll get the clients in. Then you're on your own. I said, if you need advice from me, come to me. But I'm not going to enforce my opinion on how you should grow. She does things now that I wouldn't do with regards to growing the business or not growing the business.
But you stay away.
Sorry? I stay away. Look, if it was me, I would have scaled the thing up to the moon by now. We'd have had multiple clinics. I would have franchised it. I would have blown the thing up. But she likes,
in 100 countries.
Literally, she likes the way it is. Yeah. And she's happy with that. And I stay out of it. And she respects that. And every time she needs a bit of help, I'll dive in and help her out.
Okay.
That's been phenomenal for us.
And it worked for 7 years so far.
So far, we're going strong. Love my wife to bits. She's the best human on the planet.
Great, man. Happy for you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go over to the business side again.
Okay, hit me with business.
So the stores that you started, they were drop shipping initially?
No. So every store that I did up until that point had been stocked. That's what I knew. Warehousing, stocking. I always liked the idea of controlling everything. I'm a bit of a control freak. So me having control of everything was important.
But you did test the products before jumping into buying inventory?
Yes, so I've always done a minimum value product.
Okay.
Yeah, I've always done that. So even if it was buying a product double the cost that I knew I could buy it for somewhere else, spinning up a quick store, trying to test it, trying to market it, seeing if it worked before I even got prototypes made, or maybe trying to engineer or change the product, see if there was any demand for it. And I could tell pretty quickly whether or not I'd be okay. And
did you use Shopify?
Shopify, no, back then. So I'm going back in the day with this a little bit. So Shopify wasn't even around then. So I'm a bit old school with this. I was using, initially it was a software called Zencart, which is open source, which is crap. Then it went to Magento, which is still pretty crap. But I know I've still got a couple of sites on Magento.
Never used it.
Man, it's hard and very expensive. I'd advise everyone not to use it. Shopify is ridiculously good. Right? Shopify is great. There is other great platforms coming out there, but Shopify is obviously easy. It's cheap. It's run by incredible people with great servers. It's fast. It's codable in terms of plugins and things you can put on there. I use Shopify now. And also, drop shipping has become much more accepted in the world in terms of delivery times being a bit slower. Consumers have had slower deliveries. They kind of understand, they know if they're paying a lot less for a product, it's probably going to take a bit longer. Suppliers have got much better with their actual handling of the drop shipping process. They track things a bit better. They'll update. So I'll actually go on Alibaba now. I'll find suppliers for some of my drop shipping products. They'll input all the tracking information for you. They'll actually just log into a Shopify store because they're so used to doing it for other customers. It's kind of built for it now, which is great.
This is what we did, man.
Yeah.
The supplier in China actually uploaded all the tracking numbers in Shopify. We were completely hands-off in terms of fulfillment.
This is what I've done with mine now. So I have for example, I have a women's clothing company that does underwear and other products. And I have a VA that handles all of the customer service. I have the supplier that goes in and updates and all the tracking. I have a team that do all the marketing, everything else. I don't do anything.
They're fulfilling in China.
The fulfilling in China. Yeah. So we
a clothing store that fulfills orders from China.
Yeah. So we also got all the custom packaging made, all the branding done. All I do now is I handle the content, but then we got UGC creators, underground content creators, to give us social media content, to give us ad content. The team spins that up, and I just look at it and make sure it's all running okay. So I don't really have to do a lot. It's pretty much hands off. It's absolutely incredible. Now compare that to I own a manufacturing company in the UK. So then we make the product, we then sell the product online and then ship it out. So I do literally from the process of making the thing all the way up to selling it. Now it's great because the barrier to entry is way higher. So someone trying to copy you on a product like that in the UK is almost impossible. But to get that thing started and the logistical nightmare of getting it going, there's easier ways of making money, right? Dropshipping is an incredible model.
So you're still into dropshipping, and is this what you recommend to beginners, dropshipping?
I'd recommend dropshipping to beginners more than anything to learn how it all works. The thing I've noticed the most about people that try to get into eCommerce and fail is that they don't ultimately do enough reps to actually get the skill set to be able to do it. I get asked this all the time. It's like, Elliot, you tell me dropshipping is great, you tell me eCommerce is great, but why do so many people do it that fail, and why do some people do it that don't fail? And I said, well, ultimately you haven't done enough of it to understand how to pick a good product and also sell a good product. A great salesperson can sell a crap product, but even with an amazing product and a crap salesperson, you're going to struggle. So everyone blames the product. It comes down to the selling 9 times out of 10. If you have the ability to market something in a compelling way, you can sell it. Like, for example, the underwear that I've sold in the past, I've done a bespoke underwear where you can actually customize it and everything else. Now, I was trying to sell it with the angle of put your name on your underwear and customize it for yourself, whatever. And I spun up a load of ads and I thought it was going to crush it. Sales were crap. We're actually breaking even or losing money. We're getting like a negative ROAS. Now, I thought, well, before I bin the product, maybe try wear your man's name on your underwear, right? The angle changed. The product was the same. The website was the same. But the marketing was just pitched slightly differently so that they would buy the underwear and get their boyfriend's name on it or whatever it may be. Interstellar sales. We're doing 15 to 20K profit a day. Dollars a day. Off of that one angle change. The point being is it's not always the product that's wrong. It's normally the way you sell it that's wrong. So if people don't test enough products, they don't spin up enough stuff, they don't do enough reps to learn the skills, they will never get to a point where they're good enough. So Shopify and dropshipping is a great way to actually build your skills up. You've got to do the reps, you've got to practice, you've got to trial and error. Like, how many people do you know that literally, and I bet even now, you're an incredible e-commerce guy, right? How often do you pick the perfect product and the first ad you run is bang on? It's like,
actually, some of the people in our programs
sometimes, right,
find their winning product from the first time.
Sometimes.
Probably 20% of people. It's
okay,
not
20%. Okay, but the point being is it does require skills to be able to do that, or a lot of work and pre-planning. It's not just completely luck. You have to build the skills. So this is why Shopify and dropshipping is good, because you learn the skills cheaply. The trouble is if you... I had someone that I helped once. They came to me and said, Elliot, I've spent my entire life savings on hanging plant baskets. I bought £75,000 worth from China. I was like, what? I said, have you tried selling these things before? No. Well, I needed to find some the other day, and I thought, you know what? There's nothing on there, and I wanted to start a new business. So I thought this would be great. So I went online and I found a supplier, and I bought £75,000 worth.
But how did he decide to put the money into this product?
Because he couldn't find one. Or she, actually it was her. She couldn't find one. So she thought that there must be a huge market for it. Spent her entire life savings on a product, and guess what? She still got a garage full of hanging plant baskets, because there really wasn't a demand for it. There was actually other suppliers online that she just didn't find. She couldn't be competitive. So the great thing about dropshipping is you can test. You can test before you go and plow a load of money into a stock product, which I quite often advise is actually a good transition in the future, especially when you move from a dropship product to what I class more as a branded product. That's the evolution, because then what you want to start doing is build brand. which then decommoditizes the product. That's the next step.
Yeah, that's what I actually tell my students, that we are in internet marketing, we are like spoiled.
Yes.
Because we can test so easily and so cheaply. You know, if you want to make a restaurant or, you know, whatever business in the physical world, you know, you have to put the money down in advance. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we're really spoiled.
We live in a ridiculously opportunistic era where, yes, there's guys like Velasar helping people to learn these skills. I help people learn these skills. And we're in a window right now where very few people are actually doing it. It seems saturated, but it's not. We're spoiled with the ability to test. We're spoiled with the ability to have really poor competition that we're competing against. So we can spin stores up, we can practice, we can scale up and make a lot of money very quickly. But that won't last forever. Guys like us will help people so much that then it becomes very saturated. But we've got a window right now. Where you can make a lot of money. Yeah.
And in any human endeavor, you know, you need to practice to get good. You wouldn't expect to be good at, you know, football or baseball or tennis at your first 10 tries, for example. But somehow people expect it in internet marketing.
Why do you think that is? I actually think there's a lot of entitlement in life now, right? Where people just have an assumption or an opinion or an expectation that life is going to just open itself up for you with very little effort. What's your experience of that been? I'm intrigued as well. Like, why do you think people are much more entitled, much less willing to work for a result, expecting of greatness at the first try?
I don't know, man. Maybe it's probably a complex reason, but probably people don't face as many hardships as our ancestors and mothers and fathers and so on. We live in a pretty easy time. We have it easy. And when you have it easy, you know, you probably have unrealistic expectations because you most likely never struggled in your life. That's why sometimes, you know, not sometimes, but I see a lot of people that are successful that come from very humble beginnings. But they were hungry. They had that. And I know the opposite, where, you know, the son or the daughter of a very rich person is actually a spoiled brat who wouldn't amount to anything. So I think we have it pretty easy. And that's why people have unrealistic expectations.
I also think 100% that's the case. And in addition to that, I also think that the rise of social media and the ability to view so many people showing success to be so easy without actually understanding what's gone into the fact that someone has an amazing life, supercars and all the other things through social media has led people to believe that this is all just a walk in the park. And as a result of seeing some 15-year-old kid driving around a Lamborghini in LA, thinking that they are entitled to that and it's going to take them 5 minutes to get there. As we said, the best lessons in life are expensive. You've got to do a tremendous amount of reps without seeing any results before you can become someone that is able to actually create something special. There's a price associated with success. Very few people are willing to pay that price. And what happens is a lot of people also go out the gates hugely motivated for the first week or two. And then when the motivation wears off, when the work actually starts, they give up or they go for the next shiny object.
Yeah.
And it's a real shame. But what it also means is that for the very few people that do have the hunger, drive, desire, the work ethic, the willingness to pay the price, you're going to fucking mop up. And you can do so unbelievably well in this society of snowflakes and woke culture that you just need to show up and take the lunch money.
The bar is pretty low.
The bar is freaking low.
But even this low bar is above the expectation of most people in terms of hardships they'll endure to reach that bar.
Someone's got to wash cars.
Yeah. Someone has to serve coffee.
Damn right.
That's what the popular Bulgarian author says. You know, equality is good, but someone has to serve coffee.
Smart man. We can't all be this way. We can't always be this way.
Okay, you mentioned transitioning a dropshipping store into a brand.
Yes.
How did you do that?
So for me, that normally is putting a face to it or creating something that has a story behind it. So normally for me, a brand is typically a story and a face that people can associate themselves to and buy into. A commodity is just a product. And if there's no real core values or a story or something that people want to tell about themselves when they buy that product attached to it, there is no brand. And so what I start to do is I think, okay, if this product looks like it's really good, the trouble is the one downside of dropshipping is obviously it's a low barrier to entry and dropshippers love to copy one another. So if you have a winning product, it's not going to take long before your sales start to drop.
Absolutely.
Your CPC, your cost per click starts to rise pretty significantly and your ROAS starts to fade out. Now, if I'm on a winning product and I see that it's got legs, what I'll start to do is figure out, okay, is there any influencers I can bring on that I can put as a face behind this? What do I need to do about the messaging? Is there a story I can weave into it? Is there an ability here to create something that people want to consume that will tell them something about themselves? And I'll start to weave that into more social media content. I will start to build more of an organic strategy in and around that. I will start to invest more in the packaging, the experience of the product itself, which in turn decommoditizes it. It basically means that people know you for the product name and the brand rather than the product itself. And then people will start to buy from you regardless of all the other competitors coming into the market. And that is a powerful move. It's an expensive move, typically, because you then have to start investing a lot more in all of these things. But if you get it at the right time before you get wiped out by the other dropshippers that are sniffing you or, are analyzing your store's revenue, you can get ahead of the game and actually then build something that's got a lot more longevity.
Do you use email marketing? What are your strategies for repeat purchases?
Repeat purchases, 100% email marketing. It's still great to this day. I've recently started using Telegram groups.
Telegram groups?
Yes.
You put your clients into a Telegram group?
Depending on the product,
okay.
100%. So for me, communities are great. And what I've done also with my own platforms and social media outside of dropshipping and e-commerce was build Telegram groups and communities in there because one, they cost nothing to build. Two, they're not really censored. I've been experiencing more and more, depending on the products you're using, emails getting banned more, being harder to actually land in inboxes. Whereas I thought, well, okay, I'll diversify this into actually making a bit more, especially if it's a really good brand. I can make people feel a bit more close to it through a actual community where we either have open discussion, but typically it's more of just a broadcast channel. And I actually build that asset out as well. I can give them insights, I can give them value, I can actually sell them something that they're going to buy into. So Telegram's great. So that's a new hack for me that I've been using. It's been working really well. So when I get people's mobile numbers, I typically try and get them to subscribe into Telegram.
Well, if the group becomes really large, it's no longer a broadcast group. Doesn't it become cluttered with messages?
No, because I allow, so that I switch those off at a certain size and I just allow the company to post things. So okay. It's just it's the channel. But then with that as well, if you get to a certain size, you can now monetize off of that. So you actually get monetization. You can turn those off because obviously it's going to show products that are probably competitive to yours. But it's a fantastic way to build trust, build a community, and in turn build the brand. The other thing obviously is social media. So having your Instagrams, your YouTubes, having your UGC influencers, if you're using them, actually create content for you and build brands. One other big thing that I do for repeat purchases is ambassador schemes quite often. So you bring people on that obviously make money off of selling the product. I love that. It's absolutely fantastic model. It's worked really well for me. It's depending on the product. But especially with like clothing, for example, having ambassador schemes where I bring people on that are influencers who then bring people on below them. And then, they give their codes and they get kickbacks and percentages on that. It's fantastic. Works brilliantly.
But your main source of traffic is Facebook?
Facebook, Meta, and also, do you know what? Don't write off Google. Depending on the product.
Search or YouTube?
Search.
Okay.
Search still, product listing ads and also just text ads still, depending on, still work. They still work. Yes, they might be expensive, but for certain products, they're fantastic because you're going to get a way warmer buyer. You've got someone actually searching a key term that's much closer to the purchasing stage, whereas
it's intent-based.
Yeah, intent-based marketing.
As opposed to Facebook.
And also, Meta. Oh my God.
What
they
about
change their tune every 5 minutes, man. The bans, the issues you have with it. You have to have people inside of Meta to be able to get you unbanned. It costs you a fortune. You have quality rating scores, especially with drop shipping as well. So it can be a nightmare. So Google in itself, if you can, is great. Organic can be great. But Meta, you have to learn the ropes. You have to have guys like us that can help you, show you how to navigate it, what to happen when the inevitable happens. You might need an agency account to help you run ads against. You might, there's a lot of things to take in consideration. But Meta's now hard work. You get high levels of churn rate on ads. This is why UGC contents are great, because the main thing that people fail on with, in my opinion, Meta ads is their inability to produce enough content to test regularly. And obviously, if you're not getting a good flow of ads, the chances are you're not going to find winning ad creatives. And then when you do find a winning ad creative, yes, quite often you find one that runs for a long period, but it will churn eventually. It'll run out of effectiveness eventually. So you need to keep more flow coming through. I don't know how you set it up, but we have like scaling ads. We then have testing ads, and we also try it in different. Another big thing for us is testing in different markets. This is another big thing. With the ability of drop shipping, everyone goes to America, they go to Australia, they target sometimes the
big
UK.
four.
The big four, right? But what I've also found is sometimes you can find a product that might just niche out really well in Germany. And, it might be saturated and not work in America, but it works really well in another country in Europe. Yes, the market's not as big, but the competition's lower and the demand's higher. So that can work too.
Germany is a great market.
It
We've
is a good
actually
market, to be
sold
fair.
a lot of product there.
Yeah.
Germany, Austria, Switzerland, some great markets.
Sometimes there might be issues with payment providers and Stripe, but outside of that, you can try different things. And if you've got enough creative content coming through, and you can create ads that are more in line with the culture of that country and the pain points that they might be experiencing with that product, you can do really well quite often and actually hit a market that no one else has touched.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the keys to success in Facebook is actually putting out new creatives all the time. And that's what I teach. 2 times per week, you need to put out the new creative and copy.
Yeah, so for me, unless, especially people that are starting out, they struggle with this. So let's say, for example, you're selling glasses. Now, unless you've got a full creative team and you have the ability to actually crank photo shoots and video shoots, then your best bet is to find people that you partner up with, like I say, UGC creators that create organic native content, which typically sells better anyway.
Because it blends better into the narrative of the social media. Of course,
and then if they're ambassadors as well, they can start creating reviews for you. Absolutely. They create testimonials, and then you can build out that side of things. I mean, it's easier than people think once you know the strategy.
Yeah.
As with everything in life.
Once you have the secret knowledge.
Once you got the secret sauce.
It's easier. What's your advice to young entrepreneurs?
What's my advice to young entrepreneurs?
They don't have to be young, but entrepreneurs in general.
Find something, and this is it. So I think I said this before we got on the podcast. To me, life is about creating a game that you never want to stop playing. Everyone's trying to create a life that they're getting to a point where they want to complete it. Find a business, find a love, find a passion that enables you to build a life. So you should use, in my opinion, your entrepreneurial skill set to construct a life that you love to live. So rather than look at just building business from a financial perspective, look at it from more of a lifestyle perspective, where the finance is going to enable you to have the way you built the business is going to have the freedom, the location freedom, time freedom, and wealth to be able to do and build a game that you never want to stop playing. Because what's worse than completing a game that you love playing and then having nothing else to play? It's like when you finish your favorite TV series, you're like then annoyed that you don't have anything to watch anymore. Life should be like that. You should find something. And the great thing is, as you said, we're now spoiled, especially with digital marketing. You can do anything within reason, providing you have the skill set. So put the reps into something that's going to enable you to build the skill set to create a life that you never want to stop playing, rather than stop shooting for a financial figure that then you think is going to one day buy you the life that you want. It doesn't work that way. This game is a journey. It's not a destination. So try and engineer it from the ground up. It's very hard to change your life once you've built an empire that's built in a certain way. If you, for example, open 50 restaurants and you then suddenly want to be someone that's traveling around the world, probably should have set up a digital store instead, right? It's just so think about that beforehand. And I think young people don't have enough thought about where they're trying to end up, and they just get going, and they focus purely on the financials rather than becoming someone that's able to build the business that is going to afford them the lifestyle that they want.
So they're chasing, in simple terms, short-term profit instead of optimizing for longevity in terms of optimizing for something that you want to do.
I think they go down the red pill route, and they've been led to believe that they should sacrifice everything in their life for the pursuit of more money. And they'll end up getting to 40 to 50 years old with people that I work with now that have got extremely wealthy and have created a life that they hate, and then blame money for the fact that they didn't get to where they want to be, when actually the money is the thing that can fuel the life that they want. So think about the reason you're earning money in the first place, and don't burn that away for more money. Build from now all of the pillars in your life at the same time. And what you'll find is you'll continue on a happy journey rather than sacrificing your health, your relationships, your personal image, the way you look for more money. And that's ultimately, I think, what a lot of young guys do, because they think that money is the solution to everything. Money is the solution to a better life through fueling those other things.
Thank you, Elliot, for being a guest.
Mate, my absolute pleasure. You're a legend.
Thank you, man. Ако сте останали до сега, задължително дарете един лайк и оставете коментар под това видео. Чао!